Hi, good evening. My name is Joanne Mathenge. Today, I'm your host at Product People's community event where we hold it weekly. And feel free to invite, notify, or directly message your friends, family, and colleagues in product. Let them know that we are streaming this event live on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitch. Welcome, and it's awesome having you this week, where we are going to be talking with Robert Chokr. He is a product director at Delivery Hero, and we will be discussing hiring and interviewing PMs with tips, insights, and his live experience hiring product managers. So welcome to today's talk. About a little bit about myself, I am a product manager at Product People. I am a career pivoter into product, and I have engaged myself in multiple projects so far with Product People in the last 8 months, both in B2B and B2C domains. My experience is diverse and non-linear, so it is an encouragement to anyone trying to transition to join product management. As Product People, we are good at doing two things, and we do them well. First of all, today's community event, it's where we share our knowledge generously, hence why you see today's guest brings a wealth of knowledge in hiring. And we do this as a way to give back to our community and providing insights on what is happening exactly in the product domain through these weekly talks, Ask Me Anything sessions with leaders like Robert. On the business side, on a day-to-day basis, we are engaged by digital-first companies to deliver great products. We do this on interim basis. Some people call us freelancers. We are interim product managers. We engage, onboard, align teams, and deliver great outcomes by doing exactly what a product manager in a full-time role does. That is the unglamorous work and glamorous work and hands-on work on an interim basis between 3 to 36 months. So feel free to look up our past videos and recordings on YouTube. So getting back to today's topic, we want to get to know you a little bit better. We have 2 questions, and feel free to put your answers on any of the platforms. We will consolidate them. Straight up, question 1 is, what do you think is the most important hiring managers? What do you think is the most important thing hiring managers value in a PM interview? You only have one choice here: having the right experience, understanding the product, industry, company you are about to join, answering and solving all case questions flawlessly, displaying a good cultural fit, or having the right personality attributes. Second question, take a few moments to answer the first. Second question goes, what is the most important skill to display during the interview? Is it execution, product sense or thinking, communication, strategic thinking, data and business acumen, or technical knowledge? I'll give you a few minutes to respond, and let's have a look. Stream.
All right, on my end on Zoom, I think we have pretty much a lot of answers. Gonna give a few more seconds for people who have not participated yet. And yeah, on the stream, I can also see on the other platforms we're having some input. So let's wait just a short moment and then we'll publish the results.
Great. Will be interesting to know the most popular answers. Let's look. More people attending. Okay.
I think we can check the results and move on in the interest of time.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow, interesting poll. Question 1, I think 51% of you believe understanding the product, the industry and company you're about to join is the most important thing. 20% think it's having the right experience. Also 20% having the right personality. That's interesting. The lowest scores go to answering case studies and displaying cultural fit, 3 and 6%. Well, I think we are going somewhere. Question 2, sort of a tie between product thinking and communication. Those are actually core product competencies. There is also strategic thinking, 20%. So I think the day goes to product sense thinking, communication, strategic thinking comes second. So yeah, Robert, what do you have to say? Let's hear from the horse's mouth from this.
Can I share my screen first? And I think I'll tackle that in slide 4 or 5. I want to show people the view from what hiring managers are looking for in general, but I think their results are interesting. So
I'll stop sharing so that you can share your screen.
All right, so welcome everyone. Thanks for taking time. I know everybody's quite tired. It's a full working day. You want to just relax. So let's make this easy. I put a lot of content here, so don't be concerned if I'm not going to go over all of it. We might not have time. It's enough content for you to ingest it offline if you want to, or if in the future you're going to be a group product manager or head of product, if you're going to be in a hiring position, then you can always review the slides by yourself. So a bit about me. 10 years of tech experience, currently a product director at Delivery Hero. I also founded a small educational tech startup back in the UK. I've worked on a range of products, B2B, B2C, and consumer and infrastructure products across different countries. What we're going to cover today is basically a lot of different content for hiring managers, but also for individual PMs, so you know kind of what skills you should spike for. So PM skills, interview types, good signal versus bad signals, how to conduct interviews, manners during the interview, and a bunch of other stuff. A lot of the content I'm going to show you is not just me. Like I said, I have a lot of good mentors, or I've had a lot of good mentors. I've learned from a lot of people. So some of the tips I'm going to give you here, they're tips from other people as well that have been implemented successfully. Obviously, there are going to be things I'm missing. This is not exhaustive. I'm not, this is just me giving back to the community. So I will have misses. I encourage you to show critical thinking and to implement things that make sense for your company and for yourselves in your industry. You will get the slides at the end. I will share the slides at the end of the presentation. So again, who's this for? It's for hiring managers who are hiring, and it's for PMs who are on the job hunt. The only difference being that I'm mostly focusing on number 1. Number 2 is basically a side benefit of talking about this, right? And I'm also focusing just on product management interviews. I'm not talking about cultural fit interviews, technical interviews, and all of that, right? It's just product. So what's in it for managers? You'll learn about what are the top skills you should be looking for in product managers in general, assessment methods, again, good signal, bad signal, hiring best practices, and how to spot fake it till you make it people. This is especially important since it's become an industry now. You have third-party companies that are, if you pay them money, they will prepare you to do really well in interviews. And you will see that you'll have a lot of people who are just behaving like robots and answering like robots, and they've never done a product job. So, and they're applying for product jobs that require at least 5 years of experience. So that's quite important to spot these kind of, let's say, false positives. Cool. So back to the question, right? Lenny's newsletter, which is one of the most famous product newsletters, they did a survey with 600 companies, and they got about 1,000 responses. And this is a mapping of what every one of those people kind of like stacked right into the skill set. So I think people here said basically that the number one skill is product sense. It was 31%, and the secondary one was communication at 29%. You can see here that, okay, you're kind of bang on your money. It's still top three, right? So you've narrowed down on the top three. What's interesting to note is that empathy and design UX is actually at the lower end, right? Obviously, there are a lot more other skills that are relevant. This is just the kind of like the top 10 or 11. And if you look at the plotting for different companies, right? These are different companies here on the left at Adobe, Airbnb, Amazon, Apple, etc. And at the top on the x-axis, you have skills. You can clearly see, yes, some of them are converging towards product sense and communication, because these are very basic skills that you need in any product role. But what I want you to take away from this is that you have to customize your own, you have to decide based on the industry and the roles you're hiring and the product domains or portfolios and everything else that, the cultural fits of your company, you need to spike on different skill sets. So for example, at Delivery Hero, I'm working within the logistics organization. Their stakeholder management is very, very important for us. And we're basically having a huge spike on stakeholder management, which is even more than collaboration, right? It's even more than that. So now to kind of like base us, because product, I think people are still kind of debating what is product. It's not, you're not the CEO of the product itself. That's not what this is about. And I know everybody's seen this cliche Venn diagram, which is really, really, really boring from my perspective. So I've decided to kind of show you a different view of product. And I am taking this from Judd Redfern, who is the CPO, Chief Product Officer of Atlassian. He used to be VP at LinkedIn during the high growth years. And he's basically looking, when he's hiring product managers, he's basically looking at it from these three different angles. He's saying like, look, any good product manager, that's great. They need to be, it's part business, part art, part science, right? The art is basically the storytelling, the narrative. They're a great communicator. They understand UI, UX, right? They have product intuition, which is developed through years of experience. That's the art part, right? The art of collaboration as well. On the science part, they understand they're data literate, right? They understand A/B testing, they have analytical thinking, they have problem solving skills. It's the hard stuff, right? The hard skills. And on the business side, they have basically business and financial acumen, right? They understand how businesses work and how the product plays into the goals of the business. And they also understand that they need to become outcome oriented, right? They're not just building something for users. A lot of times it's actually something that needs to work for the business as well. So I hope this makes sense. I think it's a novel way of looking at it, much better than this, which is just old. I think this is 15 years old now. So how do you discover great talent? You've got some budgets, you're supposed to hire a bunch of PMs and you want to make sure that you get talented people. There are different interview types, right? There is the HR phone screening interview, which takes about 20-30 minutes. There's the 360-degree product screening. And I'm going to go over every one of these interviews in much more detail over the next slides. And I'm going to go quite fast because there's a lot of content, but you can always refer to the slides after that. Product insights and product design, analytical thinking, leadership, and execution. We're going to cover all the first 5. I'm not going to cover technical acumen, and I'm not going to cover, again, bar raiser interviews, cultural fit, behavioral interviews. Those are generic standard interviews. You can research more, and there's a lot of content there on the internet to educate yourselves. First one, right? So again, you want to hire people unless you're like, you have a lot of free time as a head of product or a product director or a CPO, you will need probably support from HR to screen people, right? So the purpose of a phone screening is to determine if the candidate should proceed to the next level or not, right? You will probably have hundreds of applications or at least tens of applications. You're not going to have time to sit through all of them, right? So you do this phone screening with HR. They do it by themselves and they determine if CV and work experience are accurate. They soft assess for cultural fit, assess the motivation of the candidates, and they check for any red flags, right? CV gaps, they're unexplained. Gaps are absolutely fine. I want to highlight that. It's absolutely fine. You have 1-2 years gap. You went and traveled the world. Great. I admire you. But gaps need to be explained. If they're gaps and they're not explained, then that's a red flag normally. And then what I find useful is if you give HR people, because again, they've never worked with product, they're not product experts. If you give them some sort of knockout questions, right? Based on the role you're hiring, what are some minimal level product questions that these folks need to be able to answer? And if they don't, then they should not proceed to the next level. So for example, you could ask something like, hey, how would you improve WhatsApp or Chrome or whatever, Google. And it doesn't take longer than a minute, right? If they start asking clarifying questions, goal setting, if they set the goals, if they ask you for the goals, if they clearly communicate their ideas, and they structure them, that's a good signal for the HR person. They don't need to be product experts. They can decide, yeah, this is good, we can move to the next level. If they jump on a problem or solution based off personal experience, if they don't clarify the goals, if they're not really clear in their communication, those are normally red signals. Probably, the HR person is going to talk 15, 20 minutes to figure out if they should continue or not. Cool. So let's say you do this and then they're great. You go to the next stage. Normally what the next stage is, and this is completely optional, by the way, I'm going to show you other models. Normally what you do is with a really senior product person, might be the hiring manager, might be your other senior product manager. They basically have to assess in 60 minutes, assess a 360-degree picture of this product manager, going from product discovery, analytical thinking, collaboration, stakeholder management, all the good stuff. The challenge with this interview is you don't have a lot of time to go deep into all of them. So all these things that you need to assess them in 60 minutes, and you need to understand that, okay, are they passing the mark at minimum for all of them so that I can move them forward? Do I need to invest more in them? Because if they're not, for example, if they're really good at communication, really good at product sense, but they're really, they're not passing the data acumen, they're not really data literate, they're not really data driven, or they're not really empathetic, then that's probably somebody you don't necessarily want to invest in, depending on your needs, right? I'm going to assume everything makes sense so far. You can use the comment section if you want me to slow it down or continue with the same pace. I want to thank Mihai Sava for sending me this, which was a very funny tweet, right? Yes, I always give 110%. Good. I don't think that's the kind of job I want. I just want to give it 100% and I'm done. No, I don't want to give 100%, but 110, but whatever. So let's say you decide to invest in this candidate. Then the next series of interviews is something called product design or product thinking. Different companies call it different names. And here, the goal with this interview is: do they know how to build products and how to improve products? Right? Do they understand customers, UX, data? Can they articulate the lingo? Can they articulate the problem space, the solutionizing space? Do they understand design thinking methodology? So in general, you're assessing their ability to improve and build products. And there are a couple of ways you can run this interview. The most popular one is a live case study, which is during the interview, I literally pick a product or ask them to pick a product they're comfortable with. And I asked, how would you improve it, right? And I'm just going to stick on this one before I move to 2, 3, and 4. So if I go for this question and I take them for the loop of, how would you design it? Who would you work with? How would you figure out the data? What kind of research would you be doing? What quantitative analysis would you be doing? What KPIs would you be looking at? I go for the whole loop. Again, good signal here is, they're really, really clear with their communication and they're structured, right? What do I mean by structured? So if they say, yeah, with this sort of product, it's important to understand 3 aspects of it. 1 is the business, 2nd is the user, 3rd is the marketplace. 1 to 3, bang, right? It's easy to understand, it's structured. They clarify the goals. They check in with the interviewer, right? So oftentimes you will see people talk for 5 minutes straight, and then you'll have to interrupt them because they're talking too much, it's so lengthy of an answer. Normally that's a red flag if they're talking too much, right? You want to be kind of concise and then check in with the interview often if they want to deep dive more in that area or if they want to move over. You're looking for deep product understanding, right? Deep product intuition. You're looking for, my dishes just got done. So let's just enjoy the music. You're looking for a deep understanding of the user base. They segment users. They understand who this product was built for and what makes this product successful on the market. And then they understand why they want to protect that as a moat for the business, right? And this is very hard to explain, this one. Like, it's easy to explain who the users are. And sometimes it's medium difficult to explain why they're using it. But what's really, really hard is to explain why are they better than the competition? What is the differentiator? What makes them 10x successful, right? This is really hard unless they're really, really good. They use frameworks sometimes. It's not a must, but it's a positive signal. And they explain choices and call out assumptions. They need to give you justifications for why they're giving you an answer, right? Why are they choosing problem space A versus problem space B? Why are they choosing solution number 1 versus solution number 2? Cool. There are other ways of assessing this. So some companies do an at-home case study where they're basically giving a problem or a goal brief that's not 100. It has some data around it, but it's vague. So then for over a couple of days or a week, the candidate is going to go and do some research and prep a case study, and then they're going to come in and present it in a Google Doc or write a written form or a PPT, whatever. Then there's a design challenge. I've not done this. I'm going to try this now going forward because I want to thank Dana, who's really good. She's one of my colleagues. She wants us to try this out, and basically we're going to give a fairly vague brief. And again, we're going to check how are they going about the problem space and the solution space from a design thinking perspective. And then fourth, it's normally a slide deck where you ask them, what's the hardest problem you've had to solve? This is based off their experience. The idea being that a lot of people avoid calling out exactly what they've worked on. And a lot of times they work in larger teams and they don't ship things by themselves. And if you ask about their hardest problem, you can figure out what exactly did they do, how did they solve for it. And normally you can spot people when they're trying to fake it because they cannot go deep, right? Because they're going to have to go really deep on the problem that they solved. Number 2, 3, and 4, because they're takeaway home work. Normally people prep with friends or with colleagues, so they're highly curated. I tend not to like that because again, they're going to show you highly curated content. It also means that a lot of good people are going to drop from the funnel because, for example, they'll think, okay, like now you're making me work and do this extra homework. You're not respecting my time. I'm just going to drop from the funnel. So this reduces your funnel. That's why I normally prefer 1. But again, we're going to try 3 and see how it goes. In the interest of time, product design questions, just examples. Like I said, you have a couple of example questions here. I am not going to go over them. An interesting example that I actually got from an interview with a really large tech company was, how would you make ATMs work for the elderly people? So this is not just for digital products like apps on phones, right? You get these things. Bad signal, you have a list of bad signals here. Not listening carefully, not understanding the question, not being user-centric, not taking the hints and building on them. This is a big one. If normally you nudge them in the right direction, and if they're not building on that, then that means they're really not really empathetic to you as an interviewer, or they're not getting the hints. Therefore, it's a bit of a red flag on how would they be able to listen to users and to stakeholders. Slowness of comprehension of problem solving, getting confused in the middle of the interview. You can help them out and you should be helping them out. But if this happens more than once or twice, then normally it's a red flag. Well, I'm going to move over. Analytical thinking is the third type of interview where you're basically assessing, do they know how to problem solve and are they data driven in their product thinking? So here you're looking for, how are they working with metrics? How good are they in terms of defining the correct metrics for the product or feature? How goal oriented are they? How are they looking at trade-offs? How investigative are they in terms of like, okay, we have, I don't know, user signups are down 10% this week. What do you look at? Right? There's a whole bunch of stuff you need to be looking at. It's a really wide area. Interesting to see what do they look at first and why. A/B testing as well is quite a big one. So this basically would allow you to understand how data-driven they are and how they problem solve. There are a bunch of more questions that I've linked to at the end of this presentation. Good signal here again is structured communication, but especially taking a large problem and breaking it down into smaller, simpler parts. Data literacy, they know their KPIs inside and out. This one's a clear one. Like immediately when the first 5 minutes of such an interview, you realize if somebody knows their KPIs or not. It's really easy for people to fumble this interview. And I've had people actually read from, like they're reading from a paper and like, that's really jarring. Like, that's really not cool. Like when I'm asking you stuff, like don't read from a piece of paper. Just, I'm looking for you to tell me in a natural way. That's how deep you need to know these KPIs. You need to be natural and they need to come naturally to you. You don't want to be reading them out. It's just not good. Cool. They explain trade-offs again, like in the previous interview, they check in. And 7.1 is not a must-have, but I think it's a bonus, and it's a really good bonus when they're able to explain the second or third order effects of certain KPI. Meaning, we could do this and it could increase revenue, but it might damage retention and it might damage engagement. Bonus cookie if they define what they actually mean by engagement, right? Like every single interview, people call out engagements. Probably less than 10% of interviews, people actually define it unless I prompt them, right? So that means 10% of PMs are not waiting for me to prompt them. They're actually telling me, Robert, this is how I define engagement. That's a PM I like, right? They're showing empathy. They acknowledge that there are multiple ways of defining engagement, and they're being specific, right? Cool. Lastly, leadership and execution. You're looking for an understanding if they're naturally inclined to leadership and influence. I know we all know this on this call, but a PM is normally assigned to a team of what, 6, 7, 8 engineers and 1 designer. If they're not good at influencing or leading, or if they're bad, you're just going to waste the effort of 8 to 9 people. So PMs are they're a leveraged role, they're a leveraged position, they're a 10x position, meaning if they mess up, that's 10x mess up, right? So just you're looking for an understanding on do they have leadership potential without authority? Do they show ownership? Do they show self-reflection? Are they aware? Are they willing to learn and grow? Do they have a growth mindset? Can they work with other people from different backgrounds, and how do they react in different situations? Are they resourceful, right? Do they quit in the face of adversity, or do they stick it out and try and ship it? You're looking here for intellectual humility. Big plus is acknowledging when they do not know something, or acknowledging when they failed something. I cannot count how many interviews I catch people with something that's clearly a mistake, and they're just sticking out, rather than saying, no, you know what, that answer was not correct. Let me go back to the drawing board, or saying, yeah, I know what, actually, I don't know. Like maybe we can move over, or I can get back to you. Like very few people have the guts to do that. If you do that, immediately a +1. It shows you're not bullshitting, right? Of course, that's not a +1 if it's really basic stuff like, how do you do sprint planning, or what's DAO and MAO and stuff like this, right? That's basic stuff. So we're looking for growth mindsets, leadership, initiative, and ownership, and so on and so forth. I'm linking to a really cool 2-minute video. It's one of the best videos I've seen on leadership. You have Simon Sinek here, who's a really great speaker. He's basically talking about Navy SEALs in the US, military, the top military guys. And he's talking you see here on the y-axis, he's got performance, like how well do you perform in the military? And then on the x-axis, he's got trust. And basically, the Navy SEALs, they do not want people who are high performers, low trust. If you cannot trust them, right? If you cannot trust them, they do not want them. They would rather have somebody who's a medium performer, they're medium, but they're high trust. And the quote that he's giving, which is really, really, really funny, it's, I may trust this guy with my life on the battlefield, but do I trust him with my money and my life, my money and my wife? Right. So that's I found that really interesting, right? Like this is what you're looking for. Is this person trustworthy or not? And we'll cover also some other signals as well you can look for. After you do these interviews, normally people have notes, and then you discuss and debate. You might have an offer committee, and then strength of signals, bad signals. You take a decision as a group, or you as a hiring manager, looking at all the data. I'm going to come back to values. So there are different interview processes, right? Some people, for example, company A does a HR firm screening. They do product design, analytical thinking, and leadership, and then they're done, right? Just 4 interviews, done. Other companies, they've added product strategy as well in there, right? They've added technical acumen. Specifically, this is Google. Company B is Google. They're going to do a technical interview, an engineering interview, and they're going to do product strategy 1 as well, right? Example B, Amazon, they might have a cultural bar raiser. So what I need you to do is think about your needs, your role, and formulate based on these interview examples I gave you, formulate your own process. The more interviews you have, the better the quality of the signal, but the less candidates you'll have, right? Because nobody wants to talk to you for like 6 hours or whatever, right? It's quite daunting. Back to values. We've talked about skill set and what you're looking for from a skill set perspective, and I'm going to start ending soon. I think we still have 5 minutes, right, Mansour? Can you drop me a comment? So on values, I think this is something you're not going to see in a lot of other presentations. People focus on skills, whereas values are really, really important, and values are not teachable. They're just not teachable. You can't teach somebody life values. So non-negotiable are high conscientiousness. What do we mean by this? If somebody says they will do something, they will do it. And if they cannot, they will tell you, hey, you know what? I told you I'm going to do this by the end of the week, but actually I don't have capacity. I'll get back to you next week or in 3 weeks. High conscientious is people you do not have to chase up. They want to do a good job. They'll feel proud about themselves when they do a good job because they see this as an extension of their identity. This is a very important value that you don't, not everybody has it in their life. You can think about your family or group of friends. You definitely have those people who are always late, who are always promising you they're going to do X, Y, Z, and then never deliver on the promises. So this is really important for a PM. High agency, this is because you do not want to be micromanaging people. So they need to pick things up by themselves and need to drive things as much as they can by themselves. They come up with initiatives, they show ownership, and they're high agencies. They come to you when they need help, but you don't have to micromanage them, right? You don't have to constantly tell them what to do. Last but not least, this is valuable in every single business role, I think. High integrity. High integrity basically means no lying and no, no shady business. And I've seen this happen in some business contexts, and it immediately damages the whole business. So no lying and no shitty business. Highly desirable are the other ones: passion, intellectual honesty, growth mindset, empathy, people orientation. Cool. The devil, as always, is in the details. Let's go over it quickly. This is basically the manners you should have in the interview, or my recommendation. In any interview, you should introduce yourself, see if they have any questions before you start. You need to be polite and engaging. They are assessing your company just like you're assessing them. So if you're an asshole, if you're late I've had people being late to interviews with me like 10, 15 minutes. That's a minus for me. Okay, that's a bad signal. They didn't apologize. They entered the interview interviewing me a couple of years ago. They didn't even bother apologizing to me. Red flag, immediately like -1, right? That's not cool, right? So the candidate is assessing you as well. So you need to be very careful with how you're presenting yourself. If they're having a really bad day, right? And this happened, for example, I had a person who got a phone call in the first 10 minutes and it ringed and they looked at it and they rejected. And I told them they can pick it up if it's important. They said no. And then over the next 10 minutes, they were so nervous, they were failing every single interview question. And I asked them, look, what's happening? Like, you're really nervous. Do you want us to reschedule? Turns out their mother was in the hospital with COVID and it was the doctor calling. It's like, man, what the fuck? Like, answer the fucking phone. Fuck this interview. We can reschedule. So we immediately rescheduled, right? But I'm just letting you know, this is how some people are, right? So if they're really nervous, try to make them comfortable and reschedule. This should not be an excuse for poor performance, though. Big best practice, interrupt them. A lot of times people are going to try and go on lengthy answers. This is normally a red flag. You don't have a lot of time to cover for all those skills and values. So just interrupt them and apologize in the beginning. Allow for 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. If you're shadowing somebody or if somebody's shadowing you, announce it. No call recordings, please. It's legal in some countries, or maybe at least announce it if they give you permission. So no recordings. I've seen people come in and shadow me to learn and then they're recording without announcing it. Just don't do that. It's not cool. Or just get permission beforehand. And aim to make an offer within 20 days. Like sometimes Google takes 2 months. Good luck. They're losing candidates to other companies. So Airbnb was way faster in offering offers. This is going to be hard for you in the beginning if you're not experienced, because in the interview, you basically have to ask questions. Then you have to actively listen. At the same time, you're taking notes. And at the same time, you're preparing the next question. Doing 4 things at the same time. It's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. Bear with it. After 10 interviews, honest to God, it's going to be easier. After 20, 30 interviews, you're going to be like, it's going to be second nature. Honestly, you're going to be so relaxed, it's like not even bothered by it. So just bear with it. It's a bit uncomfortable in the beginning, but yes. I think we're running out of time. So what I'm going to do is we have a couple more slides on unconscious bias, on common fails. You can go over these by yourselves when I share the deck. I think we'd rather move on to and some best practices. I think let me cover on some best practices, please, though. I think this is really important. Soft skills are better than hard skills because soft skills are really hard to train. Hard skills, you can always read a book and learn them. Contemplate if you're hiring for potential versus experience. For some of the companies, you might not have great candidates. You know, you're competing with Google and Airbnb and all these companies. So sometimes if you notice somebody that doesn't tick all the boxes, it's fine if they don't tick all the boxes. If they have potential, they have a growth mindset, if they, you know, they have the base, hire for potential, coach them, right? Get them there. And number 7, which I learned from James Healy, who's a VP at Amazon, hire a complementary skill set in the team. Do not hire people like you. I'm not going to hire 5 Roberts. That will be me failing. But people always do this. People always hire who they like and people like them. Don't do that. That's bad. Hire people who are not like you. Hire people who are going to come and say, Robert, you're doing a shit job here. Like you're missing this XYZ. That's your gap. So cover your gaps and hire a complementary skill set. That being said, you have a couple of other resources at the end. And then shout outs for any people who are looking. We actually do have a lot of roles opened at Delivery Hero, especially in logistics. Get in touch if you want to explore some of them. You have the links here. They're hyperlinked, and we'd be happy to chat with people who have relevant experience. Thank you.
That was such a great presentation, high speed, concise. A lot of people have taken notes. It's exciting to hear an insider's perspective. So let's prepare our questions. Please feel free to post questions on YouTube, LinkedIn, here on Zoom. Please, we're waiting for your questions. And I loved the fact in the beginning, you said, while we wait for your questions, let me just pick the few nuggets that I really liked. That gaps must be explained, and it's okay to have a gap. I had a gap which I'd never hit, so it is great to be very transparent, and it's part of the value set. It goes a long way to explain a gap. The manners in the interview, it is a two-way street. I love that. I think somebody's microphone is on. It's manners is everything. It's a two-way street. Time to offer. I mean, 20 days is between the first day of contact to the day I receive an offer. That's a way to close losing great candidates who might have been interviewing elsewhere. I think desirable candidates are hard to find. So if you find a good one, keep it 20 or you lose them to another person. And then the juggling. This could be the most difficult thing to do when you're doing interview 1, 2, 3. But I think it gets better, just like playing soccer or any other game. You practice makes perfect. So yeah, hiring for potential. I do think this is quite encouraging to know that this actually exists as a hiring ethos, because if it was applied, a lot of people could, it gives a lot of chances. So yeah.
One last thing I want to say, sorry to interrupt if I may. This is not a science, guys. Like, I know the slides are very detailed. This is not a science, it's an art. And it's just, you're looking for signal. And a lot of times you will just have to make the best decision and based it on gut feel sometimes. And what I say is, if you will sometimes interview people who are smarter than you. I interviewed one guy who is definitely smarter than me, and the position was way lower than what he needed to be. So I went to my hiring manager and was like, this guy's really smart. You need to open a better role for him because we need to hire him. And we ended up hiring him, right? We opened a senior position, a group product manager position, gave him a team to lead because he was just really good. So don't be afraid if people are smarter than you. Hire people who are smarter than you. Otherwise, how are you going to learn and grow?
This is really awesome. And my last one was hire complementary skills. We can't all be everything. So I think the best team comes when someone is strong at data, another one is strong at insight or data analysis, whatever. I think it's a great thing. We had the first question coming from Alma, so here on YouTube. Could you please say, if you track your PM's retention time in a company, what is the average time?
That is very interesting to look at. I must admit, personally, I don't track it myself, but I've never had issues with this. I think HR should be looking at this. Normally, you're looking, based off of my anecdotal experience, you're looking at a tenure for teams, for a specific team or like domain area. Maybe they move in the company in other departments, but normally it's about 2 years, 1.5, 2 years in one team. And then they tend to move to a different team. They've learned that space, they're experts in that space. Some people choose to stay and they become like really deep experts. They stay on 3-4 years. They're the go-to principal product managers. Some people move around and they explore other parts of the business. But from an attrition perspective, like I can't tell you because I've not tracked this number and I was lucky enough not to have any problems with my team. So I hope I'm not going to start having problems. But obviously the higher the attrition, then that means there's a problem in that area, probably with the manager or with the culture. If the manager is really good, then there's a problem with the culture. So you want to look at that. And I would say it should be, sorry to answer, I think it should be less than industry average for other functions. So for example, business operations, it's 15% year on year. Mm-hmm. Product should probably be 10% if you want to have a healthy, like it should be lower because it's an area where you need to have time and you need to invest time to get impact. And if people are churning around, then you don't get impact.
Okay, a question from still on Zoom. What was the most annoying hiring mistake you made, if you have?
Most annoying hiring mistake. I think sometimes what happens is people have gotten really good at preparing these things and they give you a lot of good signals, but then you don't smell the bullshit and then you end up hiring them and then they don't perform. That really, like, this happened to me once and I didn't really like it because then like I failed as an interviewer. I should have gotten more signals. I should have asked them to do one extra interview, or I should have, you know what I mean? So I went and took a risk with that person and they weren't performing. And then it worked out well in the end, but it's not, it's almost like buyer's remorse, right? Like somebody comes and sells like, buy this, like, look, it's really cool and it has these features. And then you buy it and then the product doesn't do what it promised it did. So then you feel disappointed. So that was my mistake because I should have assessed it better. I should have invested more.
Okay, we have a question on YouTube, Sajjad Ahmad. Hi, Robert, can you reflect on structuring the product, the quote unquote product you built and proud of, and product you built and it failed, and why, and it failed and why? Questions. What should you assess or look for most in those two scenarios?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. Can you repeat it?
I think he's asking two questions in one. Yeah. So can you reflect on?
I can ask the question myself.
Sure.
If I may. Hi, Robert. Hi, this is Sajjad. So I was asking Robert, how do you ask the questions to these questions to the candidates? Like what is the product that they built and are most proud of, and what was the product that they built and it failed and why? How do you structure these questions, and what do you assess and look for most in these questions?
I guess the first one, for example, I don't really ask the first one. Rarely do I ask it. If they're very experienced normally and they have something they can really be proud of. I guess the interviewer would be looking for and understand. They want to understand what your impact was and what your contribution to the impact was. And for example, this guy Gibson from Netflix, I forgot his first name, Daniel Gibson or something. When he's asking these type of questions, he's looking for, was that because, like, did you execute that product because management told you, or did you actually write the strategy? Did you do the problem discovery? Did you go for the full circle? Or was it just, you executed on it? Like it was just quite clear that this needs a solution, you execute on it and then had this impact, right? Because that means you've delivered really great stuff, but just for part of the funnel. And for the second one, I think it's more about, seeing if they're intellectually honest with you, if they're showing self-reflection. So talking about a product they failed or something that talking about a failure. It doesn't matter if it's product related or whatever, right? Like what would they do different? I'm looking for, would they be doing something different now, right? What lessons did they get? Stuff like this. And that's kind of what you're looking for. It's basically this part of the interview. This one, kind of self-reflection and introspection, intellectual humility, making sure they're learning about stuff. And then it's also, if it's about product failures, then it's a bit about product design as well. Like, why did they fail? Are they able to articulate specifically what caused the failure, right, or not? Hope I answered your question. I know, yeah, Gibson. Yes, thank you very much, Mohammed. And hey, Sajad, good to hear from you.
Great answers. Still on YouTube, just I'm going in the order of arrival, the questions. I'm curious, what was the funniest situation when you caught someone bullshitting you in the interview? How did you detect bullshit?
You're looking for things, how natural is the conversation flowing? Mm-hmm. How quickly are they to respond and structure their thoughts? Are they trying to answer your question, or are they trying to bring it to a different area where they're like more experienced, right? Because if it's basically this one, we didn't cover it, but interview failures, allowing the interview to take control of the interview and completely drive the direction. It's normally a good signal if they're driving the conversation, but you do not want to let them take control of the whole thing. That's normally an indication that they just want to talk about things they prepared, right? Whereas I want to take it away from things they prepared. I want to take it to a fresh green area so I can see their skill set being applied live. And if you can apply your skill sets live with confidence, and if you can talk about it naturally, then that normally means you're not bullshitting, because that's really hard to fake in a natural way. If people start talking about they're using frameworks, like I'm asking them, okay, how would you prioritize rice? Every single candidate I've interviewed last year, that's the first, I'm tired of rice, right? Like 3 other frameworks, right? So good candidates would say, yeah, you can have rice, you can have business, you can have like legal compliance, you can have GDPR, you can have, they take me through a bunch of options and then they tell me what they prefer and why. So normally I'm looking for somebody, if they just apply a framework like a robot, it means, man, this person just learned this framework and I'm going to try, okay, let's not use this. Can we use something else, please? What else do you know? Or can we approach it from a different angle? And that's how I realize if they're really experienced or if they just learned things by heart. And these are all signals as well, right? Sorry, this one. These are normally signals.
Very great. There is the Morgan Elsgood, I think. Hi, Robert. Thank you so much. If you hit all the marks for the soft skills, have the non-negotiables, and want to get into PM, what ways could I improve my skills to be noticed?
If they don't cover some of the non-negotiables?
Now, if you hit all the marks for the soft skills, they have the non-negotiables in place, and they want to get into a PM. What else do they need to improve?
I mean, back to all the skill sets, right? So it depends on the hiring manager. What do I mean by this? If I'm hiring an interim position where I'm comfortable and you're going to have a small business scope, small blast radius, you can't go wrong. If you do something wrong, the CEO is not going to call me. Like, no one's going to cry if you do something wrong. If I'm hiring for that position and you have all the boxes and you don't know all the hard skills, you don't know how to do, I don't know, quantitative analysis, you don't know user research, you don't know anything, I might be comfortable hiring you. If I'm hiring for a product manager position on a team that's medium criticality, and you don't know any of the hard skills, I'm not going to hire you. Sorry. Like, there's no way in hell you can learn that in 6 months. That's just not humanly possible. So I'm looking for people who normally, for example, they miss 1 or 2 hard, like, what do I mean? Like, if they tick all the boxes and they have a solid core of hard skills, but for example, they're missing A/B testing skills, I'll contemplate having them. Because A/B testing skills, you can learn those in 3 to 6 months properly. Right? But they have all the other stuff. They've done quantitative analysis. They've done user research. Or the other way around. Somebody who's really literate in data analysis, A/B testing, and all the hard skills, but they've never done user research themselves. They never interviewed users. Fine. So my point is, like, the gap you can't, with this job, again, it's a leveraged position. You're accountable for the work of 10 people. So if you have large gaps and you're coming in to learn for a PM position, that's really hard sell. For an intern or an entry-level one, that's easier. An associate product manager, that's an easier sell. And that's why normally, guys, if you think about the best PMs, they come from an established industry role. They come from marketing, operations, management. They already have, you don't come out of university as a product manager. Very few people do that, right? Like most companies don't have that skill. You come in from a different function where you already have some Excel skills, like some Excel skills or some SQL skills, or you have something to offer, right? And then you can build on it. If you don't have that, if you cannot build on it, then it's a hard sell. It's difficult.
Great. I think that's a great point there, that to encourage people from other domains or other specialties to be product managers, to leverage on that skill. There is also, I wonder on Zoom, I wonder how, this is Tebea, going to share my screen just for the sake of.
Yeah, I think I can also ask if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Yeah, I was just wondering, because you mentioned the values, and I'm wondering how you can detect during an interview if someone's who's conscientious. Like, how can you detect that during just an interview?
Very good question. I hope you can help me do that. If you saw on the slides, I had a tiny cookie. And I said bonus cookie for somebody who can help me include psychometric tests in this interview process. I've never met any company, and just because I love learning, I'm interviewing with companies just so I can learn. I interviewed with Facebook to see how they interview, right? So I've never seen any companies use psychometric tests to detect these values, but there are psychometric tests you can use. They're clinically validated by psychologists and psychiatrists, like by researchers at universities, right? The question is, like, I can't really figure out how to include these, and then you're stuck using behavioral questions to use them as practice. What do I mean by behavioral questions? So if I want to see if you're high conscientiousness, I ask them, hey, can you tell me about the last time somebody had to chase you up on something you said you will do, but you didn't do, right? Mm-hmm. And I dive deeper, right? And based on the answers, I understand if they feel bad. If they don't feel any remorse, they don't feel bad, and I ask them more and more, then I get a sense, okay, they don't really care about this, right? If I get a sense that actually they tend to avoid this and they tend not to like this, and they're trying to be diligent, but yes, it happens to everybody. It happens to me as well. But as long as I see that high how do I call it? Passion or high bar. It's a high bar for excellency. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean, right? As long as I see that, then it's good. Hope I answered your question. And
yeah, I mean, I guess it's quite hard to tell when you just meet someone for 20 minutes.
So ping me. That's the thing though, wait. So first off, ping me on LinkedIn if you figure it out. Second, it's not 20 minutes. It's 5 interviews, 1 hour each. So like by that point, you should, even though you're not using tests and all that, mm-hmm. Maybe like somebody should have an indication. And by reading the notes, you should really have an indication of where they lie on that dimension.
All right. I will let you know as soon as I figure it out.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
Well, we have a lot of questions, Robert. But we have 5 minutes, and that is an indicator for us to start wrapping up. Perhaps could you just take one more? What qualities do you look for candidates on entry-level PM position? Just quick fire answer.
I think it's the non-negotiables I wrote there on the slides. So high conscientiousness, high integrity, high agency, growth mindsets, active listening skills and empathy. And I think, again, I stick by that survey that Lenny did, man, like communication.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a PM, whether they're learning or not, doesn't really matter. Can you imagine hire somebody and they come in and they cannot, okay, I'll give you quotes. One of the best quotes for PMs. What does a PM do? A PM is a person who goes into a room full of confusion, guys. The PM goes into a room full of confusion and they get out with a clear answer and everybody's not confused anymore. So if you hire somebody who goes into a room full of confusion and is not good at communicating, they're going to create more confusion. Or worse, I've seen PMs who are not really good. They go into a room full of clarity, they ask a bunch of questions, and they create more confusion, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. That's why communication is so critical, and empathy, understanding how to communicate, when to communicate, adapting your communication. I'm still working on it, by the way. Like, I'm also not perfect with communication. Definitely, I have a lot of improvement aspects as well here, right? It's you live, you learn.
Awesome. Thank you so much for these great responses. I think you also covered a number of questions that are still pending with that broad answer. So yeah, our fans, our regular attendees of this event, thank you so much. About product people, we care about delivering great products, but here is why we exist in this product domain. It's because sometimes there are gaps in product teams and we fit them in 5 ways, yeah? So some digital first companies need to grow their PMs at scale because they have more funding or more money rather, or they close a round of funding. Sometimes a PM could take leave, parental leave, which means 3 to 12 months of absence. A PM has left and moved on to another job or another company, and a hiring pipeline takes about 2 to 9 months, or a temporary initiative. So, and sometimes we are called upon to be coaches, to coach product teams to help them appraise their process or the team itself. So this is why what we do. In that process, I'd have to say we also get interviewed while taking up these roles so that we are a fit, and they are also a fit. So it kind of matches the mood of this conversation today. We work with a number of B2C clients within Europe, Berlin specifically. You can see some of your common brands here, particularly we share Philatix for those who are football, fitness fanatics and lifestyle type of life. I think we have received great feedback. We like to own it in the form of direct when people get called out that you did a good job here, and we appraise Elisa, Renee did a good job running a demo today, for example, Victoria, stuff like that keeps us motivated. And again, our team is fully distributed across different locations, and our common goal is to deliver great products faster and spread the product ethics and ethos into different companies, while also learning from great product leaders like today. And with that said, we invite great candidates to join our hiring process. We will take on Robert's advice to take good signals and bad signals so that we can live up to the motto of our community and also help more people become great product managers. Feel free to refer people that want to jump into product from productpeople.join.com. And with that, thank you so much for your time today. Share this talk, and next week, same time, different host, different topic. I will see you on Tuesday evening at 5:30, 6:30 CET. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Have a great evening. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.